Okay, mic check. Storymore is in the studio. Yeah. Okay, tape's rolling. Take one. All right, I'll just start it out here. Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson. Today in the studio... Cut. There we go. Cut. Number one. All right, take it from I'm Jeff Thompson. Take two. Today in the studio, we have from Storymore, its founder, its creator, Micah Thomas. Micah, welcome to Blind Abilities.
Hey, Jeff. So glad to be here.
Lately, this year, I think it's been like Valentine's Day, Table on the Terrace dropped, a few others dropped, and Storymore has been putting out some great audio drama. And I love the tagline, you got the headphones, we got the drama.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Storymore to our listeners.
Sure. So Storymore is an audio drama production company at heart. It is our goal to provide the world's best or highest quality audio dramas and everything from cinematic music scores to high-end or high-definition Foley sounds or sound effects, if you will. And, of course, all of that underbeds a cast of voice actors that can provide and help move the story along. And so, depending on the story, again, that could be a couple of actors or, in some cases, a really large group. And we have a dependable pool of actors globally that we can reach out to kind of match in with the character that we have for a particular show. We distribute through Apple Podcasts as well as our website, and that provides us a great platform to give those that might not get an opportunity in the acting or entertainment space, specifically the blind and visually impaired community. This is a great platform for them to come in and provide some really great performances that they might not otherwise get the opportunity to do because Hollywood is not necessarily always looking into our community for filling their roles. So we want to provide that platform to them. And of course, because it's geared in that way on the talent side, we also have engineered and mastered these audio productions to be most enjoyed by those who are blind and visually impaired with surround sound and 360 editing.
That's what I found very intriguing when I'm listening. It's like someone's over here, you're in the room. It seems like you're coming from the perspective of the listener where you're sitting there eating popcorn or whatever you're doing, but I'm almost turning my head as the next character comes in or they do something across the room. And it's just like, you're right in there.
That's the entire goal. We want to immerse the listener. In Storymore, we kind of approach everything from a headphone first priority, so to speak. As a matter of fact, one of our voice actors, Zandra Hall, who was just in recently released a drama called Barley, she had a listening party and we did a sort of private screening for the cast and close family and friends. And they got to listen to it, of course, in their Bluetooth speaker, and they have like a surround sound there in their home. But they elected to use the speaker, which is a pretty high quality. I think it was a Bose or something like that. And they enjoyed it, and they heard a lot of the Foley things. And at the conclusion of the screening, I said, now, guys, I don't know what devices you were listening on, whether it was your phone or tablet or something in your home, but go back and listen to it in headphones, AirPods, or whatever you have. The experience is completely different because of the way we edit. We look at this from a headphone first perspective. And so Zandra gave me a call and she was like, yeah, I was out on my morning walk and Barley has some nature sounds and things like that. And she was like, it was really weird. It was really freaky. I completely understand what you meant because all of these sounds there were beginning to mix into some of the nature as she didn't have noise canceling headphones. And she was like, without knowing it, I was completely in the story and some things were scaring me and I was jumping because it kind of bled through in that sense. But add in the fact that it's 360 edited. And there were things she thought that were coming at her and, people walking beside her close with these types of things. So that's the level of immersion we've tried to reach as engineers.
I know exactly what you mean, because in the beginning there, you got the birds and the outdoors and everything. And if you're out on a walk, may I suggest not to wear noise canceling because you will be stopping for a car coming by that isn't there.
Exactly. That's still the goal.
And you guys meet that goal because when that door knocked in Barley, I turned my head and just went, oh my gosh. And I had a hunch who it was. I won't spoil it, but it's just a game changer right there. That knock, it wasn't just a knock centered. It was a knock over there. And I was like, I was just riveted to the story. So that was a good one. That was really good.
One last thing to that end, we are living in a time where the technology, and we do consider ourselves a technology company, to try to encapsulate all the emerging things that are coming out and all of that. So, there'll be further conversations about AI and all these other types of things. But from the perspective of the past couple of years, there's been a great deal of emphasis on 360 video, particularly with the Oculus coming out and all of that type of thing. In a way, we wanted to emulate that from an audio standpoint to where, just like you're wearing an Oculus headset, for those that may not be aware, you're able to kind of look around, and not just 360, and basically every single area. If you're looking to the sky or ground or whatever, you're getting this full picture as if you're there. So from an audio standpoint, we wanted to apply that so that you're sitting in the middle of the room. And I've always wondered, and I think they will, that film will develop in Hollywood to offer 360 offerings. So instead of these sort of 2D or 3D versions of movies that we're watching on screens or whatever, are they going to come out with films at some point where the audience is sitting in the middle of a scene and having to look around to try and take in everything that's happening in a scene and be right there next to an actor, as opposed to viewing this from a foreign plane? I think we lead the way in doing that from an audio standpoint, because we have the ability to, and Barley and so many others, you really are sitting right there in the middle of the room. You know, the fire is over on the left side, the door is on the right, and you can begin in your mind to conceptualize, oh, this is what Barley's cabin looks like or would look like, and this is where the things are in his cabin. Just by listening to the different Foley or sound effects that are there, you can begin to kind of develop a layout in your head. So again, just to that end, that's the whole purpose of how 360 can help change the game.
Well, on Valentine's Day, when you dropped Table on the Terrace, that was a surprise to me. That one off was like, what is this? Table on the Terrace. So I played it, and I was right there. And, you know, when people walking away and at the table, it was great. And Tanya Melovich, who's been on Blind Abilities, was in that one with Katie Lee, I believe it was.
Correct.
I mean, how is it I can't even find a man in the man store, let alone one with satisfaction guaranteed, and here you are, not even window shopping, but blissful as can be.
Yet here we are, and you're the one that's complaining. To be honest, I'm not sure how I can help you, or even
that was just awesome. It's an outdoor setting. You just felt like you almost got hungry.
That's awesome. And of course, it all helps to drive a good story like that. When people don't have to work hard to be in the story, to adapt to the sounds or the environment, then it allows you to focus on that story. What's the conversation happening? All of these types of things. But more importantly, it's not that you're just enjoying a story, again, from a foreign plane or a distant place and you're observing it. You're in it. You're immersed in it. You're sitting at that table with those two characters in Table in the Terrace. And again, being able to do that subconsciously, most of our audience is completely engaged in the story because all of those ambient things are already taken care of and so well designed and meticulously placed. They really do feel engrafted in that story and engaged.
You know, another one I just listened to and got immersed into, Turn Flop River. I'm not a gambler, but I've been to Vegas, and when they walked out of that, kind of like a AA thing for a gambler, and the sounds hit me. It was like I was right there, and I get anxious with those sounds and stuff like that, and it was working. That's the true effect when I'm there, and that's what happened during Turn Flop River, which is another good one that I'm waiting to see.
Yeah,
you know, the rest of.
You really don't have any idea who I am, do you?
Should I?
No. No, you shouldn't. That makes this all the better.
Look, Miss Cash.
Geneva.
I don't care for your approach, to be honest. Without getting into it, the energy here suggests that you want something from me. What or why, I can't imagine. But whatever it is, let's get to it, huh?
Okay. Let's start with why you're in a gambling support group.
That should be obvious. I have a gambling problem.
Correction. You have gambling problems. And they're all debts.
I mentioned that in the meeting.
Yes, but what you didn't mention is that while your house can be mine tomorrow for less than a bottle of wine, you're about to drink up all you need to save it in 3 sips and still owe another $63,624.49. And that's on the principal alone.
So, you work at the bank, huh?
I own banks, yes, but no, my banks wouldn't carry a property of that valuation.
Fine. My house is garbage compared to whatever palace you're living in. What's your point?
I don't have a point. I have an opportunity.
I like how they lead you on, which reminds me of one that I was out in my workshop working. Epic of Fic came out, and it's a children's story, so there's something for everyone.
I tell you what, how about y'all hop into bed and I'll tell you the story.
I don't know about that.
Oh, shush, Tyler. I want to hear this.
Okay, fine.
Well, once upon a time, a long time ago, in a land far away.
Well, this is original.
Oh, shush.
And I just got intrigued because of the voices.
Mm.
And I was listening to all the other stuff and the story, but I was just giving Storymore a good listen to. And that was really good. And a change from something that I've usually listened to on Storymore.
The goal of Storymore, as we mentioned from the beginning, is to try to branch a story for everyone. I mean, you talk about our tagline about you have the headphones, we have the drama. We actually have several taglines that we're going to be putting out there, but one of them that's been in play for us is a story for everyone, because that's what engages everyone, is a good story, whether it's a kid, whether it's an adult, it doesn't matter who you are. We're constantly taking in stories, the sequence of events that can be engaging, and it's all driving one question: what's going to happen, right? What's going to be the thing? And so for Epic of Fic, we really wanted to engage kids as well, and that's just one of a lineup of kid stories that we have, and eventually, of course, we're probably going to separate the brands to have Storymore Kids and Storymore, which we do kind of have those brands working together. But from that standpoint, Epic of Fic is another one that allows us as audio engineers to not be restricted to things like huge film budgets or whatever, where we have to spend all this money on CGI or whatever, to create the effects of what you can create in your own mind, whatever that may be, just by hearing those sound effects. And then, of course, the story being driven by professional actors like Katie Lee, who have been really in-depth in the industry for almost 30 years, to be able to bring those characters to life, again, with all of that ambience, helping to create the world that your mind is imagining with the audio as the fuel.
You know, this all started way back in my mind. What you're doing is like War of the Worlds, Orson Welles and stuff. And I saw this one movie they made, and it was kind of based on the Follies, the sounds that they were making and how they would do it. Like they needed thunder, they bang on the ductwork from the bathroom that would echo through, and they used that for thunder. And it was just neat to see, well, other things, the coconut shells for horses walking, all these sound effects and stuff like that. So the creation of your dramas like that, what is that process like when you start building this 360 immersion?
Believe it or not, it actually all, of course, starts with the story itself. I never start from a what can we do standpoint. That actually all comes later. It's normally some story that flashes in my mind. The hilarious thing about Barley is that story hit my mind, I'd say, if I was just giving some time frames, at 9:30 in the morning. The script was written by noon, out to the cast by 1 o'clock p.m., and I think I had everybody's roles by the next day to begin to edit, right? As I'm writing these things, obviously that's where the first inkling begins to come in. Okay, I'm going to need this sound or whatever the case may be, and you're kind of building it out as you're thinking. Some of our early scripts, and I'm working against the habit. Any good screenplay, even for audio, would have a great deal of description in the script about sound or whatever, and you have all these notes, and you have these parenthetical actions or things like that where you can say, okay, well, this is the sound of blah, 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 and that kind of thing. Our scripts don't have a lot of that. They're mostly the dialogue, because from the engineering, which I do a lot of the engineering for several of the shows, and we have several other engineers, then it's normally like, okay, what do you think would go there, right? Because a lot of it isn't so planned and methodical as you might think. It's like, well, there's something missing in this scene. There's a sound that we need, or something of that case. And so we prefer to work more organically in that sense, because you tend to come out with a better product if I already have something listed that there should be this sound. And sometimes it is. Then sometimes as you're listening to it and that sound doesn't really work, you got to change it anyway. And because we're organic in that sense, we have to try to work through that. Now, from the back end, not every single sound is accessible. And of course, there's numerous services where you can obviously subscribe to, get some kind of Foley sounds or something like that. And for anybody that's engaging in that, I'd be very careful to pay attention to licensing and things like that, which I know is going to be a technical thing. But if you're planning to go mass with something, you just want to make sure that you have the proper license to be able to distribute to a certain number of people. So the safest play is, how can you create your own Foley? That way there's zero questions about copyright or infringement or misuse of a license or overusing a license or something like that. So that's when the question comes in, how can we be creative? Like, how can we make a certain sound or get a certain ideal using, it can be stuff around the house, stuff outside, stuff wherever. And that's the beauty of it. Sound can be found anywhere. So for some fun examples to that end, there's a couple of chair scrapes, I think, in Barley, but and a couple of other shows like Flop Turn River, where somebody's just scooting their chair back. Obviously you could use almost anything to create that, but what type of floor is it? What type of chair is it? All of that can be suggestive. So we had to use a Coke can against tile floor once to create a metal chair effect. We had to use the regular sort of wood chairs at the dining table to create that effect. We had to take another piece of wood against metal to create that effect. So again, you're asking yourself these questions as you're editing. What type of floor is it? What type of room is it? Is it wood? Is it, regular plasters, brick walls? All of those things affect how we approach sound.
I like that. I like that the script is what you go off of and then you build from there.
Right.
Everything comes from the script, the story. I like that. Storymore. It's not Foley more.
Right. There you go.
I can see where, like, in some shows where they over audio describe something, it gets to the point where you're reading a story almost or being told a story when it's very overly audio described, I guess. And I suppose if you come at it, like you said, you're trying to get away from a habit, but let the story tell you what it needs rather than having a handful of stuff that you want to throw in there and find a place where you wait for it to come or something. I like that. Yeah. I really do.
The last thing I would say to that end, in a sort of quick answer, in the beginning, I was very adverse to anything that seemed like an audiobook where it was mostly narration, a monologue from a person telling a story, and then we just kind of fill sounds around that. But there were other things where we've opened up to the idea just a touch more, only in the sense that it's not something you can easily make an audio drama. So sometimes the description is necessary. Flop Turn River, you mentioned earlier, is a story about a gambling addict who gets called back into one high-stakes poker game so that he can walk away from the lifestyle. Of course, the game is a little more dangerous than he anticipates, and that's where the fun and the drama come in with that one. But from that standpoint, how do you see what's happening on a poker table? That's a completely visual experience to know what the cards are. So there's more narration in that one for the main character to sort of explain what's happening within the game to the listener, and any gambler would appreciate it. And I think and it's done in such a way that if you've never played poker, it's still done in a way where you can enjoy the actual story. So you don't have to be a poker player to immerse yourself in that one and enjoy the drama and the story that's happening around that particular game. And same thing with Barley. We could have let the Foley just do all the work, but Barley's character helps describe in a certain way what's happening, and the Foley help enhances that. So we're not totally against narration. We just try our best to give your mind most of the tools without us having to guide you through that process.
I think you got a great balance going on there, because once I hit the button to start listening, I'm riveted. I said that before, but I'm listening. Now, I may be doing stuff in the garage as I'm listening, but that's how I roll. I'm usually have the stuff on. I'm in the shop and it just comes. I don't shut it off. And a lot of things I do shut off, a lot of podcasts, a lot of other things, but I think this is a really neat audio drama. It's a really neat venue. I remember the debate of this is a movie, this is a book, this is audio described. There's three different things, but audio drama to me is a whole nother area that I hope more and more people start paying attention to, because it's really immersive and it's a deep dive. It is. And your 360, I like that, what you're talking about with the sound and stuff. Sure. Now, it doesn't have to be overly done, but it is done just enough where, like I said, I'm in the center. I'm looking around. I'm getting the layout of the room. So I got to hand it to you. This is something that caught my attention when I was listening, and I'm going to keep on listening.
Well, I appreciate that. And to put a cap on that, that's really the mission from the beginning. Audio drama, fiction podcasting as a whole in this particular space of entertainment is a subterranean yet massive world. There's a ton of people doing it. Now, you could debate the quality by which it's done and things like that, but you can tell everybody's interested in telling a story in a certain way. Our goal is just to do it better than anybody if we possibly can, or at least be amongst the best. But the goal is to, through this brand, develop a pipeline where audio drama can become the mainstream thing and is just as talked about and just as aware and things like that here in the States as much as movies and mainstream film. It's my goal, hopefully one day, to see a Golden Globe category or something for audio drama, just like they would have it in film or something else. Across the pond, we get a lot of listeners from the UK because it's still mainstream over there. They still do audio dramas, BBC audio, and so on and so forth. So we're, again, just trying to make that same effect here and draw those bridges to that same level of interest that they have over there. So as long as we keep our foot to the pedal there, audio dramas is going to be a thing, and Storymore will hopefully be the brand that's leading the way.
on Facebook, Storymore, I skip through Facebook quite a bit. And I like the shorts that you have on there. Like E.S. Henry was on there talking about barley, and just his nature just gets you, hey, I want to check that out.
Hey, good day. My name is E.S. Henry, and I'm a voice actor for the group Storymore. And in the Storymore original Barley, I play the role of Jake Barley. And Jake, to me, is a really interesting character. He's a normal guy. He's a guy chasing the American dream. He's got the house, white picket fence, wife, a couple of kids. And then things go wrong. And there's some pain, some betrayal, some hurt that takes place in his life. And Barley is about how one man decides to deal with those pains. It's a great episode. So grab some headphones and take a listen to the Storymore original Barley right now on Storymore. Have a great day.
And then there's one of you doing your recording, and you're going over your lines and you repeat a couple of them, but you hear the different influx. It's really neat to see those. So I suggest people, if you're on Facebook, check out Storymore at My Storymore on Facebook. And you can see what's coming out, what's coming up, and what's just been released.
Yeah, definitely. And we try to spread ourselves around socially as well as we can. So on Facebook, it's at My Storymore. So that'd be facebook.com/My Storymore. TikTok is also the same, at My Storymore. Hopefully that platform continues and we can continue to release fun behind-the-scenes content and previews and more on that platform. Or you can just go to storymore.com as well and join our mailing list. We do send out a pretty consistent run of promotions, some marketing, some behind-the-scenes stuff, and some really unique things that are exclusive to our mailing list there as well. So those are ways to keep up with our community. And there's some more fun, exciting stuff we have going on with some conferences we're going to be a part of and sponsoring of PodFest and a few other things. So just kind of hang around. Storymore is doing a lot of fun things, and these are ways to plug in and keep up with us.
Well, you're doing a great job. We've got actors globally out there, and I was really impressed when I saw Katie Lee's resume on the little short there on Facebook. I was like, oh, wow, she's been around.
Oh, yeah, love it. And it's so funny because as a kid, obviously, I'm listening to, her, and she was the voice of my childhood and did so many characters. And I still am surprised to this day. It was probably last year when I realized she was the dubbing of the voice in Indiana Jones Temple of Doom, which is one of my favorite movies that she played the Maharaja. So it's just fun to see that she's given so much voice to so much in the world, and that she's along with us here at Storymore for the ride.
There you go. Well, Micah Thomas, I want to thank you so much for coming on to Blind Abilities and sharing the Storymore story and what it offers. And people can go to the show notes, and I'll put all the links in there too. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you're going to be hitting the studio, so thank you, Micah.
Thank you, Jeff. You guys have a great one. It was an awesome time.
I'm going to be a little while getting home.
Oh, no, Benny. Why? Don't tell me you took overtime on Thanksgiving. Not when I told you you should have been home all day anyway. It's a holiday.
You don't have to worry about that, huh? I got fired today.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities, and download the free Blind Abilities app from the App Store and Google Play Store. That's 2 words, Blind Abilities. And if you want to leave some feedback, give us some suggestions, give us a call at 612-367-6093. We'd love to hear from you. I want to thank you for listening, and until next time, bye-bye.
When we share
what we see through
each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap
between the limited expectations and the reality of blind abilities.
And the realities of blind abilities.